Today's number is 8,750. That is the number of US Microsoft employees eligible starting today for the first voluntary buyout in Microsoft's 51-year history. About 7% of Microsoft's US headcount. The terms hit internal mailboxes overnight. Hang on to that number for a moment. We'll get to it in today's lead story. Well, it's Friday. Happy Friday. We finally made it, and I hope you're gearing up for a fun, strong weekend. Yesterday, Microsoft opened a door for 8,750 employees and said, if you want to walk through, here's the package. The first voluntary buyout in the company's 51-year history. And yesterday morning, the Challenger Jobs Report said AI is the number one cited reason for U.S. job cuts for the second consecutive month. This week's headlines were littered with lists of layoff announcements. Today, we dig deeper into the data that tells us why. I'm Don Michalik, and this is your Morning Intelligence for Friday, May 8th, 2026. Here's what we got today. In the lead story, we have Microsoft opening the buyout window. Challenger says AI is a top cause for U.S. job cuts, and the BLS landed an April print this morning. In the rundown, Connecticut signs the country's most expansive state-level AI law. Pennsylvania sues Character.ai for a chatbot pretending to be a licensed psychiatrist. And Anthropic's revenue passes OpenAI, except OpenAI is calling foul on the math. In the deep cut, Microsoft's other big drop of the week, a global AI use report that complicates the layoff story we're about to get into. And we close with the Oscars deciding what counts as an actor. Let's go ahead and get into it. All right. Yesterday afternoon, Microsoft confirmed the first voluntary buyout in the company's 51-year history. By yesterday evening, leaked internal documents were across CNBC, Fortune, and Fast Company. The picture this morning is a little bit sharper than it was yesterday. Eligibility runs on what Microsoft is calling the Rule of 70. Your age plus your years of service has to add up to 70 or more. Senior director and below. Sales incentive plan employees are excluded. Per CNBC, that puts the eligibility pool at up around 8,750 U.S. employees, about 7% of Microsoft's U.S. headcount. The package, per the leaked document, says this: 12 weeks of base pay plus 2 additional weeks for every year of service. Healthcare extended up to 5 years. Accelerated equity vesting. Employees have until 11:59 p.m. Pacific on June 8th to accept. Reading that back, 12 weeks plus 2 weeks per year of service. For a 20-year Microsoft employee, that's roughly a year of severance with healthcare. This is not a layoff. This is the company's opening a door and saying, if you want to walk through, take the package. And worth noting here, Microsoft did 6,000 layoffs in May in 2025 and another 9,000 in July. Those were forced. This is voluntary. The shape of the cut has changed here a little bit. And the backdrop, let's take a look at that. Microsoft's fiscal year 2026 capital expenditure plan is in the range of $110 to $145 billion, most of it earmarked for Azure AI infrastructure. So the buyout is happening in the same fiscal year as the biggest AI infrastructure spend in corporate history. The stories are the same story, just on two different sides of the coin. So let's zoom out one more time here. Challenger Grain Christmas dropped its April report yesterday morning. 83,387 announced U.S. layoffs in April alone, the third highest April cut since 2009, up 38% from March. AI was cited as the number one reason for U.S. job cuts for the second consecutive month. 21,490 AI attributed cuts in April alone. Hiring plans collapsed 69% month over month, the lowest reading since the pandemic baseline. So here's a question for you. If Microsoft, the most stable big cap employer in tech, is now offering 8,750 people a year of severance to walk away willingly, what is the playbook for everyone else? And for you, dear listener, maybe a marketing manager, consultant, an operator, financial aide, whoever, this is the new shape of right sizing. The voluntary exit, steeper severances, optics friendlier than a forced reduction in force. Better for the brand, easier for the lawyers. The bottom line here, the headlines this week were a list of names. You got Cognizant, you got Freshworks, Coinbase, PayPal, Meta. different brands, different press releases. This week, the data put one banner over all of them. AI is now a primary name driver for headcount decisions, not a footnote, not a press release rationalization, the number one cited cause for the second straight month. All right, let's go ahead and get in today's rundown. And our first story comes from Hartford Business, CT Mirror, Lexology, and Pluribus News. 2 days ago, I told you Connecticut might have the country's most expansive state level AI law signed overnight. Well, Senate vote was 32 to 4 here. Lamont vetoed the equivalent bill last year, and that veto reversal is its own beat in and of itself. Three things in that matter to this audience, I think. One, if your employer uses AI in hiring, promotion, discipline, or firing, they have to disclose to you that AI is actually being used, what it's being used for, and what data categories are involved, and ultimately where the data comes from. Number two, AI tools cannot be used as a defense in discrimination claims. And the third, generative AI providers with 1 million plus monthly active users have to embed provenance data in AI generated audio, images, and video. All this goes into effect October 1st. Well, so what? Well, if Connecticut is really setting the template here, I would expect a lot more states to introduce some version of this later this year. The federal preemptive fight is loud, and the states are not waiting for it. If you work somewhere with AI in the people decisions pipeline, this is mostly squared to you, and this is the disclosure you should be asking your HR team about by at least October. Our second story here comes from NPR. I think NBC News had this. TechCrunch definitely had it, and ultimately comes from the Pennsylvania Attorney General's office. On Tuesday, Pennsylvania Attorney General Josh Shapiro filed suit against Character.ai in Commonwealth Court. The complaint centers on a chatbot named Emily. Emily described herself as a doctor of psychiatry, claimed Pennsylvania and UK medical licenses even, claimed she had studied at Imperial College London, supplied a fake Pennsylvania medical license number even. Per the filing, when a user wrote, quote, "I feel sad and empty," end quote, Emily diagnosed depression, offered to book an assessment, and said she could prescribe medication. This is the first state lawsuit specifically targeting an AI chatbot for impersonating a licensed medical professional. Character.ai says the characters are fictional roleplay and disclaimers appear in every single chat. 20 million plus monthly active users, many of them being teenagers. The company settled multiple suits in January over teen mental health crisis issues. So what? Well, if anyone in your house, partner, parent, kid, or otherwise, is using a chatbot for medical or mental health questions, this is the lawsuit to follow here. The role play defense is about to get its first real legal test. The answer Pennsylvania gets shapes what every other state attorney general does next. Our third story in the rundown. This one's really quick here. I think it came from the Register, and definitely the information had it as well. Yesterday, I told you compute is the actual scoreboard underpinning a lot of the decisions and the stories we talk about on this podcast. Today, the dollars and cents scoreboard joined it. Anthropic's annualized revenue hit $30 billion in April. I've covered that on multiple occasions, up from $14 billion in February. That puts Anthropic ahead of OpenAI's reported 24 to 25 billion annual recurring revenue for the very first time. And here's the new beat. An internal memo from OpenAI Chief Revenue Officer Denise Dresser surfaced this week, and it argues that Anthropic's headline number is overstated by roughly $8 billion because of differences in how the two companies treat cloud partner revenue. So what? Well, the who is winning question in AI just got its first review. The interesting part isn't the number per se, it's what OpenAI is now disputing in writing. When you see a giant AI revenue figure this week, check who's calling foul before you actually go and repeat it to anyone else. All right, real quick here. If you're enjoying Morning Intelligence, do me a quick favor. Forward today's episode to one person on your team, the one who keeps asking you what's going on in the world of AI. Send to him an email, text message, chat. You can send it to him in a LinkedIn DM, whatever makes the most sense to him. You can even go tap him on the shoulder and tell him about it. If you could tell them about the episode, you help the show grow. And I genuinely appreciate it if you share it with them. All right, let's go ahead and get into today's deep cut. The deep cut today, and not the 8,750 from the top of the show. Let's talk about the other big Microsoft data drop from earlier yesterday. While the buyout terms were leaking, a different team inside Microsoft published the Q1 2026 Global AI Diffusion Report through Microsoft on the issues. Different team, different message, same parent company, and I think it's worth your time to hear it. Here are the numbers. Global AI usage rose from 16.3% to 17.8% of the working age population in one single quarter. 26 economies are now over 30% AI usage. The United Arab Emirates leads the world at 70.1%. The US moved from 24th to 21st place at 31.3%. Earlier this week, we cited Stanford's 2026 AI Index, 53% of the US population using generative AI in 3 years, faster than the PC or the internet. Microsoft reads this morning is the global version of the same story. Adoption's not slowing, it's actually spreading. Here is the counterintuitive number that I drew from this. US software developer employment hit roughly 2.2 million in 2025, up 8.5% year over year. And that was a record, actually. Q1 2026 was up another 4% versus March 2025. Get pushes globally up 78% year over year. Microsoft credits Claude Code, Codex, and Copilot for all of that. So, why is this worth your time to hear this morning? Well, we just spent the lead on layoffs. The diffusion report is the other half of that picture. AI usage is globalizing and it's globalizing fast. And the simple AI replaces developer story is not what the data is actually showing here. Developer employment is at a record high, but the reshape is real. And the reshape is not a wipeout by any stretch of the imagination. So the takeaway here, it's really two things. First, AI adoption is no longer just a US story, and we knew that was going to be the case. Your job's competitive set just expanded to include people in Mumbai and Dubai using the same tools you're using. Second up, the question for your career is not, will AI replace me? It's, am I one of the people using it well enough to be on the right side of the reshape? That's the part the layoff headlines miss entirely. All right. Before we sign off today, and the last thing we will get into before the weekend, we have the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences Board of Governors approving a rule banning AI generated performers in AI written screenplays from major Oscar categories. Effective for the 99th Academy Awards, the March 2027 ceremony eligible for 2026 films. Acting nominations now require, quote, roles credited in the film's legal billing and demonstrably performed by humans with their consent, end quote. Writing nominations require scripts, quote, demonstrably written by people, end quote. Submissions will require an affidavit of human origin. Let me read that back. The Academy is making filmmakers swear an affidavit of human origin in order to be eligible for these awards. AI in production, your visual effects, editing, and post is explicitly not banned here. The rule is a direct response to the AI performer Tilly Norwood and a wave of AI screenplay submissions over the last year. If you write or perform for a living, the Academy just gave you a quiet thank you note, if you will. If you build AI tools for the entertainment industry, well, you have until October to figure out which side of that line your product actually lands on. And affidavit of human origin is going to be the most overquoted phrase in the industry trades for the next 4 months. I can almost see it coming now. So hopefully you heard it here first. All right. For some teasers over the weekend, we'll take a look at some stories for Monday's show. Sam Altman is expected to take the stand in the Musk versus OpenAI trial as early as next week. That is the testimony the entire trial has been building towards, and we will watch every word and everything that comes out over the weekend leading up to that buildup. The Trump administration's AI pre release vetting executive order is still in draft and could land any day. So we'll keep the beat on that as well. And Google I/O kicks off on May 19th. We should have Gemini 4 and the new AI Ultimate Light tier coming, and we'll probably have a few things that they haven't told us. So again, we'll keep an eye on all that leading up to Google's I/O, which kicks off again on May 19th. And that's Morning Intelligence for Friday, May 8th, 2026. If you like what you heard, hit subscribe from wherever you're listening. Share it with that one friend who keeps asking you, hey, what's going on in the world of AI? You know who they are. I'm Don Michaelik. Thank you so much for listening this morning, and have a great weekend. And I'll see you on Monday.